Good song. Welcome. Morning. Good morning. Welcome to CCA's 2015 Global Expo in Atlanta. For those of you who are out too late, this is Atlanta. So I hope you had a productive day yesterday and you got a chance to attend some of the breakout sessions, the seminars. We had a great breakfast and lunch session yesterday. And want to also thank TNS for being the sponsor of our after our hours party last night at Hard Rock Cafe. I know I enjoyed it. I hope you did. Hopefully you got something to eat and some coffee and got some energy levels up. I want to thank our sponsor for the breakfast this morning, which is Latham Watkins Law Firm. And thank you. I saw Jim around here a little while. We appreciate the breakfast. I would also like to thank our Pinnacle sponsors, because without them, we couldn't do this. Real quick, Alcatel-Lucent, Brightstar eSecuritel, Ericsson, Huawei, Interop Technologies, Sprint, and TNS. And we really appreciate and thank you for your support. I'm also pleased to welcome those that are joining us through our live webcasting today. It's being provided by our broadcast partner, RCR Wireless. And thank you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. It's great to have so many of you joining us. It's good to see some old familiar faces and also some very new faces and new CCA members. And as always, as we've said many times before, the greater our numbers and the more that we can work together for our shared interests, the better chances we have of success. And there's a lot of challenges ahead. So it's been a really incredible year. I'm going to give you a little update on the issues and where we've been. It's been busy, productive year for CCA, and I think quite successful, and we all should be proud of the accomplishments over the last year. And just last year alone, we were responsible for 150 filings at the FCC on various issues of policy concern. Over 100 press releases explaining our policy and advocacy positions, hundreds of meetings on Capitol Hill with members of the House and Senate and administration. So we've been very busy, and we've done dozens of interviews with the press and media, all to get your message out on your advocacy issues. And needless to say that we were in the forefront of every policy issue, every competitive carrier policy issue in DC, and thanks to the good work of you, our members, I think we've been quite successful. There's a lot more work to be done, and the year is really young. We've already had over 40 filings at the FCC already, and some of them quite substantial because of the issues that we're facing. So a lot is happening right now in DC. Net neutrality, you probably have heard about that one. 600 megahertz incentive auction, possible Telecommunications Act rewrite, patent reform, unlocking devices, USF modifications, NG 911, location accuracy, just to mention a few, and it goes on and on. Trying to maintain an environment where competitive carriers can simply enjoy the sense of continuity and for a moment find their footing, so to speak, has been very difficult. There is so much going on in DC. There is so much change occurring all at once. My hat's off to you. Sometimes I don't know how you're able to cope with all of that and also try to run a successful business. Among all the change, however, CCA remains committed to basically the three overarching issues that our board has set for us. And I think those issues affect all competitive carriers and ultimately your customers, the consumer. And all these three overarching issues are spectrum, access to networks, and devices. I cannot stress enough the importance of the spectrum for the competitive carriers. The duopoly controls 73% of the low-band spectrum in the market now. A dangerously high percentage when it comes to a competitive marketplace. It's time to try to level the field. And consumers want choices, the economy benefits from multiple players in the market. So as you know, earlier this year, the AWS-3 auction was completed, and the results clearly show the lengths carriers will go in order to access additional spectrum. The AWS-3 auction far exceeded anyone's expectations, raising over $41 million net revenue, while at the same time fully funding FirstNet, which was one of the statutory requirements. The very fact that AWS auction commanded over 3 times the predicted value shows that the carriers are desperate for additional spectrum, capacity, capability, and they're investing serious capital. And the AWS 3 auction also drove home the important fact that small carriers need access to small slices of spectrum to remain competitive in your markets. Clearly, the stakes for staying in business as a competitive carrier are extremely high, and for providing new services to your customers equally high. It's for this reason that CCA is diligently focused on every aspect of the 600 megahertz spectrum auction. It is a huge focus for us. We can't let up. We have to be there at every meeting, at every table, and at every time we're called upon to share our views. It's going to be a highly complex reverse forward auction, but I think we're starting to make progress, and I'm proud to say that we've seen success in several of the areas, especially on the license size. We worked diligently with the FCC, and they adopted a competitive framework for the incentive auction rules, and we are especially pleased that the Commission adopted CCA's partial economic areas, the smaller geographic areas for the license, so that you, the competitive carriers, could bid on reasonable geographic sizes of spectrum, and they expect to win in the areas that you need it. Smaller carriers have neither the resources nor the need to bid on enormous swaths of spectrum, and the original proposed EAs, or economic areas, were much too large. So large, in fact, that I've told the chairman of the FCC and others that they would have essentially resulted in the regulatory execution of small carriers. So I'm glad that the FCC considered our proposal and adopted it, and at least it's part of the plan right now as we go forward. In addition to the geographic license size, we're successful in working with the Commission to set aside spectrum in the spectrum reserve to prevent the largest 2 carriers from walking away with the entire pie. Smaller carriers have fewer resources and cannot compete with these unlimited wallets and pockets of the largest carriers. And for that reason, we've pushed for a reserve that allows smaller carriers to the opportunity to bid on low band and without interference from a duopoly. And hopefully we will urge the FCC to expand the reserve. We think we can increase it, and that actually should increase the competitiveness of the auction itself. We also have been very supportive of the FCC's continued use of bidding credits, properly structured. We think bidding credits will help level the playing field for qualified bidders, and the FCC must establish clear, upfront rules to encourage this participation. More bidders mean more competition, greater revenues for the U.S. Treasury, and hopefully increased benefits for the consumer. Commission is going to be making some critical decisions going forward over the next couple of months regarding the incentive auction. Let me be sure let me assure you that we'll be there in every step of the way, supporting your interests. The incentive auction is possibly the last opportunity for low-band spectrum, or maybe the last opportunity to be made available in our lifetime. There's not any other spectrum on the horizon after this. There's not a greenfield slice of spectrum available. So this is critical, in my opinion, and I think many viewers. So we know what's at stake for the smaller carriers, and we know that you want to show up for the auction, but spectrum is not optional. It's something everyone has to have if they're going to remain competitive. There's no doubt that access to the spectrum is huge, but it's also extremely important for competitive carriers to have access to a robust, seamless network. And it's a simple fact that we need to build out networks in rural America. I don't know where we have, the FCC's come up with the figure that 98% of the job is done. But we need to bring high-speed mobile broadband services to all the rural and regional markets, and I think we have some great carriers that can provide that service. We feel strongly that America, especially in rural America, deserves the same services as those in the urban America enjoy. And to make this happen, the smaller carriers have to have access to USF, the Universal Service Fund, both the Mobility Fund 1 and now hopefully Mobility Fund 2 and the Connect America Fund. And CCA has been working with the FCC to ensure that carriers access these vital funds. But I have serious concerns about the FCC's view here. I want to point out that Congress said in 1996 that it wanted similar telecom services to be available everywhere throughout the United States. And I'm fearful that the FCC has lost sight of this with respect to mobile services because they have significantly reduced funding for wireless. And Congress has weighed in on the legislative rewrite that and some of their proposals are extremely troubling also. Putting the USF online as a budget item subject to appropriations. So the case for USF support, at least for me and for the wireless industry, is clear. Consumers of all ages, economic groups are turning to wireless connectivity more and more every day, and this alone, more people viewed the content on their wireless devices than they did watching programs on their actual television set last year. And people spent more time searching the internet on a wireless device than they did on a conventional desktop computer. It's undeniable. This trend is clear, and the trend that consumer preference for wireless will continue. And there's no reason for the FCC to reduce funding for wireless, high-speed mobile wireless broadband, not in rural America or the regional markets or any place. Wireless pays into almost over 60% of the USF fund they take now under this new formula, less than 9%. That's not right. That is just not right. So this past year, you saw an 81% increase in data demand. In the next 5 years, we are predicted to see a 1,000% increase in these huge numbers. And with respect to expanding broadband in rural America, the FCC's decisions to date are actually contrary to the consumer's clear preference. And I think this is an area where they got it wrong. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure they have an opportunity to get it right. Another network issue that poses significant challenges keeping up with evolving technology and with the stress that consumer demand places on your networks over the next few years, all carriers will need to move to 4G, 4G Advanced, and 5G. And it's absolutely essential that carriers reach these new technologies in order to compete. And leveraging the next generation of technology is what will give Americans the feeling of, well, I guess freedom that they seem to want and demand now. And the ability to make calls, access data, no matter where they live, work, or play, travel. A big part of meeting this demand also relies on this industry's transition to an all IP world. And there are many factors and many issues that will greatly affect the competitive carrier's ability to compete. So we're monitoring those decisions. The role of net neutrality is a huge issue. We'll get to talk about that just in a little while. In Washington, it's in its open meeting last month, the FCC adopted what they call the Open Internet Rule. But the actual impact of the order is still unclear. And I don't know if you've had a chance to read the 400 and some odd pages with appendices. I think we're over 1,000 pages, so it's fairly complex. But at this point, one thing is clear. Every mobile operator needs maximum flexibility to manage the networks, and they need competitive policies that will allow them to compete and deploy the next generation networks. And CCA will closely review the details of the order, and we're looking to Congress next to see what they have on the plate for net neutrality. And in addition to the IP transition, net neutrality, all carriers must have roaming. The largest carriers, if they were allowed to say no, then we'd have a lot of competitive carriers in high and dry and in a fix. So we're monitoring the roaming mandate very closely and trying to figure out how net neutrality applies to that. The FCC has already issued a mandate requiring companies to negotiate agreements, but unsurprisingly, the duopoly has been extremely slow in the take-up of that. They've been dragging their feet, and we really can't have that continue. And in an effort to move forward, about 2 months ago, we successfully supported T-Mobile's request for additional guidance on how to evaluate what is commercially reasonable. And we think we have produced a positive outcome for carriers, a baseline that allow us to, to pursue roaming agreements. Because roaming is absolutely a critical input, we worked diligently to find industry solutions also. And I'm pleased to say that the CCA's Data Access Hub, powered by company TNS, is making great strides. And as you may recall, a year ago at this event, Sprint, Masayoshi-san, announced its commitment to develop a robust nationwide network to compete with the largest carriers in the United States and help ensure roaming access for competitive carriers. And since that time, Sprint has signed dozens of agreements with CCA members, and they're continuing to work with our members and seek additional partners. And with the data access hubs and Sprint's commitment, I think we're well on our way to facilitating a nationwide roaming capability that allows the smaller carriers an opportunity to continue to compete. And can't say enough good about Sprint's commitment and continued efforts in this regard. And of course, discussing roaming brings us to a third issue, which is very closely tied to roaming, which is devices. And questions and challenges surrounding roaming and devices are huge business issues for you. We understand that. The board has made it clear. We've sought to offer business solutions to our members to help carriers acquire devices. And as I mentioned, we're well on our way to providing a pathway for the competitive carriers with the help of Sprint and Brightstar. And now, hopefully, T-Mobile is now interested. I think we see some real progress in the picture ahead. And as we all know, some influential device manufacturers like to sort of pick and choose who they may wish to sell to. And with that aim, we've created this device hub. And that's powered by CCA's AppKudo partner. And we hope that we can provide our carrier members with opportunities to get their hands on a range of new devices and that they may not have otherwise been able to access. And Sprint has, again, so generously stepped up to the plate, bringing significant scope and scale. And they've offered to make their entire portfolio of devices, as you know, available to CCA members in economically sustainable prices. So we're looking very much forward to progress on that. On the policy front, I'm happy to report that we've already had success in a few areas. Major success, device unlocking. CCA has long advocated, device unlocking. I testified before the Library of Congress. I testified before the House Judiciary Committee. We took the position that consumers should be allowed to unlock their devices and go to the carrier that they most desire. And finally, the President signed the law. That's a pretty big accomplishment for us. There weren't that many laws signed by the President the last Congress, but this one I think was good. But it's not over. We still have to work on the triennial review with the Library of Congress, and we will sustain that effort. Everything on the device side's not finished either. We got the hearing aid compatibility requirements, device theft issues. As you know, Mr. Wheeler at the FCC said, if you don't find a solution, I will find one for you. We would prefer not to have a regulatory solution or a mandate. So we're working on that. 911 requirements, NG 911, location accuracy, those are all issues in the mix right now, and we're trying desperately to make sure that there's flexibility for the smaller carriers as we move. All these issues we discussed this morning bring us together as members, but also bring us together as advocates, and hopefully we'll work together to overcome these obstacles. And among our peers and colleagues in this impressive network of members that we have, we've had the means to find these new solutions. And whether it's in one of your breakout sessions here or just chatting with another friend and colleague informally, I'm confident that we'll learn new ways that we can work together and new solutions that we can bring to the table. And that's a big part of why these events are so important and is such an important part of CCA. And it's why and how we can expand our horizons and to reach others in this ever-growing mobile industry. And I'm proud to announce that next spring in Nashville, we're going to rebrand the Global Expo as the Mobile Carrier Show. Simple, right? The new name is self-explanatory. No one has to worry themselves about what is CCA. The goal is to identify the Mobile Carriers Show as something that we can bring to the masses of everyone that's in the mobile world, the mobile industry, and has a mobile strategy. So our goal is to reach every competitive carrier in North America. We want to also reach all those that support the wireless industry. And everything's going mobile: healthcare, cars, households, entertainment, agriculture, the list goes on and on. But none of this, and let me repeat, none of this would be possible without mobile networks. And we've always known that CCA is the home of the competitive carriers, and our events attract more competitive carriers, individual competitive carriers, than any other event. So it only makes sense to call it the Mobile Carrier Show and let the entire world know who we are and where we are, and if you want to be with carriers, come to our show. But as CCA's work goes on beyond this week here in Atlanta, we'll need your help in fighting the policy issues. We have plenty of on our list, job to do list. As you heard, while we have great confidence in CCA's abilities and our members, we can't win these battles alone in Washington, D.C., and we need your involvement. We need you to be involved, both carriers and associate members. It makes a difference, and because the stronger our membership is, the louder our voices and the more effective we'll be in the policy arena. And one very important way you can make a difference is join us at CCA's Capitol Hill Day. Meet your members of Congress. Tell them directly what matters to you in your businesses every day. As a constituent, I can tell you, your voices will be heard loud and clear. And that's something I can't do better than you. So come join us. I've often said we live vicariously off your presence for months after your meeting. So also help us on the Take Action. We have a website, ability. You can send letters to your members of Congress on important issues like USF. All you have to do is go up, click, and make it. We try to make it pretty easy for you because we know that you got other things to do like running a business, but it is critical for us. You can also get involved in the committees. By virtue of being a member, you're entitled to be almost every committee. So look into it, join the committee, bring your voice to the table, let us hear your thoughts. You can also bring about favorable change by getting involved in CCA's Political Action Committee. And our PAC actually helps support those members of Congress that actually support us and advocate for our policy interests. And it's become a very effective tool to interface with members of Congress just on our policy issues, the wireless issues. And so please, if you need more information about it, go to the website, talk to Tim Donovan, our chairman of our PAC, treasurer of PAC. He'll be more than happy to help you. So that's sort of an overview. And now for the real reason why you're here, and then we have an outstanding lineup this morning. We'll be hearing from two great keynote speakers a little later, Michael Peters from Alcatel-Lucent and George Reed from Huawei Technologies. But first, I'm very pleased to introduce our CEO Roundtable, our premier key event this morning.